We're joined from Cairo by the international relations expert, Mohamed Osman. Welcome to Qnews, Dr. Osman. And let me start off first and see what you think about the recent 60 Israeli airstrikes on Syria and the impact of on the stability of the country overall.
Thank you for having me, Salma. Of course, Israel's ongoing transgressions inside Syria are a major destabilizing factor and is causing great concern to the Syrian people and as well to the many Arab countries and many countries around the world as well. Israel last night carried 60 airstrikes, and before that they carried over 500 airstrikes across Syria, destroying and decimating the majority of the infrastructure, 80% according to Israeli sources of Syria's military infrastructure. By that, they destroyed all the equipment of the different branches of the armed forces, and this is to ensure that Syria will never again maintain a coherent military force that is capable of maintaining the country's territorial integrity and sovereignty. And I think this is the main Israeli goal behind these actions, taking advantage of the vacuum caused by the fall of the Assad regime and the Syrian state in order to ensure what I have just mentioned. And also Israel is moving on the ground by expanding beyond the occupied Golan Heights and occupying over 200 square kilometers. That's almost the size of the Gaza Strip, or about two-thirds of the Gaza Strip, inside Syria, including the strategic Jebel al-Sheikh, which is called in Israel Mount Hermon, and also marching into southern Der'a and the countryside of Damascus, and now they are about 25 kilometers away from Damascus. And in addition to that, just moments ago, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that Israel will expand its illegal settlements inside the occupied Syrian Golan Heights in light of these events. So it seems that Israel's presence inside Syria will be permanent. There is even talk of establishing a ski resort in Jebel al-Sheikh, which is a very provocative announcement by some Israeli private sector agencies, and as well as the visits by Israeli settlement builders and radical people.
And with Damascus International Airport preparing to resume operations, what does this, do you think, signify for Syria's recovery efforts?
Of course, in the midst of all of this chaos, whether internally or because of Israel's actions or the chaos inside Syria itself after the fall of the Syrian government, the current caretaker government led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham HTS, which is vying for international legitimacy and recognition, seeks to spread a sense of, or establish a sense of normalcy in the country, to establish confidence and to demonstrate that they are able to provide services and control the country. And one of the instrumental ways to do that is by reopening the Damascus airport in an attempt to demonstrate that they are able to maintain communications with the rest of the world. And this might be a good sign if the airport is reopened and flights are restored. However, I fail to see how would this solve any Syria's ailing problems. Syria's problems are much deeper than the opening of an airport, of the rebuilding of a road.
Absolutely. What are the expectations surrounding Geir Pedersen's visit to Damascus, and what role do you think he will play in the ongoing diplomatic talks?
I think that the UN envoy going to Damascus and visiting Syria for the first time since the fall of Assad is significant, and I think it might revitalize the UN role inside Syria, especially that the UN has been completely ineffective, and the UN envoy, whether Mr. Pedersen or his predecessors before him for the past 13 years, haven't been able to effect any change or broker any deal to end the chaos in Syria. Maybe now with the semblance or with the promise of more stability, at least temporary in the near future, maybe then the UN might be able to play a prominent role in pushing forward a political transition in Syria in line with Resolution 2254, Security Council, of course.
And how do you assess the joint statement lately by the foreign ministers of Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Iraq, Lebanon, and Bahrain regarding Syria's future?
It demonstrated the Arab vision for Syria onwards. The statement by the Arab countries is responsible and holds the national interest of Syria and the Syrian people at heart. It stressed the sanctity of Syrian territories and Syrian sovereignty, and they supported Syrian sovereignty, and they condemned Israel's actions in Syria, and they also called for an inclusive political transition that is democratic and representative of all the segments of Syrian society and all religious sects and all ethnic groups. And this is very important, especially since the political transition inside Syria led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham right now does not seem to be moving in that direction. So I think that was a message by the Arab countries to the new authorities in Syria that you need to be more inclusive and more open. And of course, it also called for national reconciliation and dialogue. And I think this is very important in order for Syria not to descend into another round of civil war.
Within that framework, what do you think are the prospects then for a peaceful transition in Syria, and how can the regional powers influence the process of moving towards and moving forward?
As we have seen, the Arab powers in the region are being very responsible. However, other regional actors need to play a more active and positive role. A regional actor like Turkey needs to commit to the unity of Syria and to the independence of Syria as a nation state, and that their support should only be directed in this regard. And also Israel should stop its aggression. It's another regional actor that is actively cutting out chunks of Syria and taking advantage of the chaos that is going on. So, and Iran should never again engage in any destabilizing activities in Syria the way it did in previous times. I think all of these regional actors need to come together and form a common vision to support the hopes and aspirations of the Syrian people to establish a democratic, inclusive state and government that is representative to all of their aspirations.
Dr. Osman, what do you think are the future scenarios for the upcoming period when it comes to the situation in the Middle East, especially with U.S. Blinken's Middle East tour?
I think that Mr. Blinken's tour mainly focused on Syria, and of course, the United States has a vested interest in marketing what happened in Syria as a positive move and as a success, because the fall of the Assad regime plays directly in favor of their interests, because it diminished the Russian and Iranian influence inside Syria. And also, they are very keen that Syria does not become once more a source of terrorism and radical terrorism, especially the terrorism undertaken by movements like ISIS. So I think that they are seeking guarantees, and they do have these guarantees from the new government in Syria, and they are seeking regional support in this regard, and they are seeking as well to safeguard the existence of forces such as SDF and the Kurdish factions under the umbrella of SDF that play a pivotal role in fighting ISIS and radical Islamists in eastern Syria. However, I do not think the United States has a coherent vision for what Syria should be, and they deal with Syria just like another chess piece in a huge game of geopolitical chess between them and regional powers such as Iran and global powers such as Russia. So I do not see what the United States can contribute positively, at least the Biden administration. When the Trump administration comes, we will see how they view the situation in Syria and what their policy and their vision towards it will be.
Well, that was the international relations expert, Mohamed Osman. Thank you so much for your insights.